Hello and welcome to quilt number 2, which is the Fruit Pastels quilt. So this one is combining a few different techniques. So we've got 9 patches that are scattered throughout the quilt, which is set in a Irish chain design. Can you see that it joins up and creates a chain effect? So they're just created 9 patches using a coloured square and a background square. Then we've got the folded pastels themselves, which create a little folded star, which are appliqued on. So a little bit of a different technique there. And also this quilt uses a double fold binding, which I don't think we've done before. And there'll be instructions in the pattern about that. Okay, so we're going to make a start. And to start, we're going to actually focus on the 9 patches. And I'm going to make one of those. Here are my squares. They're 1.5 inch squares. Mine are brown, yours will be multicoloured. And I'm just going to start off by joining a light and a dark in pairs. So I'm going to do 3 pairs. One. Let's cut that long tail off there. So we're going to have 3 rows. So I'm not going to iron them at the moment. We're just going to have 3 rows. Ooh. Actually, I'll finger press them towards the darker one each time. There we go. And go back in and add the other ones. Piece on there where I joined it before my bobbin ran out, so let's get rid of that. Don't get too hung up about this term scant quarter. It really means just taking the edge of your foot just ever so slightly off the edge of your fabric. Okay, so I'm going to finger press that one towards the darker one, that one towards the darker one, and that one towards the darker one. And then I'm going to assemble the rows. You might want to do this with pins. I'm just going to zoom through it so that you can see it. That one onto that one. See, I'm nesting the seams as before. So you always want to try and nest the seams as much as possible because it makes for a flatter block. And the other tip with regards to pressing is do make sure that you press all of your blocks in exactly the same way. So whatever you do with block number 1, press them all the same way and then they will come out uniform. Okay, so there we go. I'll just give that a tiny little press behind me. Oops, no I won't because my husband's moved my ironing board. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like, your little 9 patch. Okay, so that's your starting point. It's a little bit of a tidy up. Moving on then to the hexagon shapes or the hexagon appliques, I'm going to give you a couple of options. I'm going to give you a template for a hexagon in the pattern. I'm also going to give you an option of making an easy hexagon or the hexagon star. So this is the sweet shape. So let's see what I need out of this bit of kit. Right. So what you're going to need to do to start off with is get some freezer paper and also a compass, or a pair of compasses I think is the correct term. And you're going to draw, so I'm measuring this on my mat, a 5-inch diameter circle. So you want a 2.5-inch radius. Okay. Whoops, I knew that would happen. Let's get it back. So you need to press down quite hard and draw yourself a circle. Cut out a circle. This is onto the paper side of the freezer paper, so you've got the shiny side underneath. So I've cut some fabric pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to iron this onto here and then cut round the edge. So you'll just see me whip off sideways. There we go. And I'm going to cut around the edge of the circle. Okay. I'm going to peel it away and then fold it in half to find the centre. So I get rid of that piece of circular paper and get myself a centre point. I'm just finger pressing that in. Now, needle, and I've got some bottom line thread here, but you could just use regular thread. Right. Okay. I'm just going to put a big knot in the beginning and find my centre. And I'm just going to take a tiny little stitch through the centre. Okay. And I'm going to take a stitch into the very edge and pull that into the middle. I have used some spray starch on this. That's a very good point. And yeah, not best press, but actually a light spray of proper, you know, like you would use on collars and cuffs years ago. Works better. So I'm just taking it into the centre and then I'm coming back up in the middle. And then you can see where that meets the edge. I'm going to catch that tiny little bit there and pull that into the middle and sew it just through that point. Okay, I'm just giving it a finger press as I go along, and because it's got the starch in there, it's taking it particularly well. Pull it into the centre, stitch it down. Finger pressing it. Make sure you remember to come back up. The number of times I've done that is unbelievable. Through the every point, bring it in. Can you see we're beginning to form a hexagon shape? Just finger pressing it down to that point. Bring it back up. Then bring that one back into the centre. And then you should end up with a point that looks like this. I don't know if that was in the way of the camera. Can you see? And then you just go through that final point. Press it flat. And then sew through the centre a couple of times. There we go. Okay, and then you would, where's it gone to? Just take one of your, I think it's a 3.5 inch background square, and you would applique that to the centre that way around, so with all those pieces hidden in the back. Put your button in the middle, and the bulk in the back sort of just puffs it up a bit really, and then you just work your way around there with a hand applique stitch, which I will go over in a second. So that's the easy option. Okay, so just get rid of that, move that over. Okay, option 2 is the star option, folded star, and begins in the same way. So you can either use the template, which is the hexagon template in the PDF, or you can make your own. And making your own looks like this. So again, it's a 2.5 inch radius, a 5 inch diameter, and onto the freezer paper. This time I'm pressing down a little harder, and then draw yourself a circle. Then take your compasses out to the edge and start making marks. So I'm putting the point of the compass on the last mark that I made. I'm working my way around. So you should end up with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 evenly spaced marks. And then you're just going to join them up. It's just slightly off. So be a little bit more accurate. Take your time if you're going to make your own template this way. There we go. Do this a little bit differently because I've got straight edges and I've got a rotary cutter. So I'm going to iron this on, and then I'm going to cut round using a rotary cutter. So I'll just disappear. rotary cut those lines. So once you've made one template with freezer paper, you can use it over and over and over and over again. So rubbish. So there's your template. You just peel it off. And there's your hexagon. Okay, so this one will start in exactly the same way. So this is the folded star sweetie, shall we call it? Folded star pastel. So again, I'm going to find the middle, finger pressing it. Get the thread back, make a knot in the centre at the end of the thread, and I'm going to start off by taking a little stitch in the middle. So I've got a knot in the end of here, and a stitch to the halfway point. So I'm just going to give it a little finger press, and I'm going to collect that piece and pull it towards the middle. And I'm just going to put a tiny stitch through it and stitch it down. Now it will automatically then fold at the next point, so you want to catch that point. Make sure you've come back up through the middle. Something I seem to forget to do quite a lot. And you want to collect that one right close to the edge and put it in. Okay. And then back down through the middle, back up again. So you're sort of pulling them all into the middle. Then just finger press it down to that point, that halfway point, grab hold of it, pull it into the middle. Okay, and then keep going around in exactly the same fashion. Can you see I'm sort of finger pressing it as I go? Make sure you come back up in the middle. The number of times I've forgotten to do that is unbelievable. Pull it in, sew it in position and stitch through. Try and be a bit more camera savvy so that I end up showing you more to the camera than to me. Okay, the next one, just finger pressing it in position. Gets easier with practice. Right, we're on the last one now. You can see, just like the circle, it goes to a point of its own accord. Make sure that you are up in the middle, and then just a little stitch in the outside edge. Trying to get those last few pieces in place. Through the center again, back up. Okay. Right, now what we're going to do is we're going to start folding them in a different way. So I'm going to push them down. So they're in a pleat. So I'm pushing at the base and then I'm folding them flat. Then I'm going to pull them back. And then, I don't know if you could actually see that. Probably see it as it goes as I begin to manipulate it a bit more. So then I'm going to put a little stitch in just that end piece and pull that into the center. So yes, it is a little bit fiddly, but keep going. And I mean, you won't get them all perfect, but who wants perfect anyway? If you want something perfect, you'd buy something that's all mass produced, wouldn't you? So I'm just pushing that down and peeling it back. That makes any sense? So it looks like that. Finger pressing it in place. I haven't used an iron. So getting right to the end of that little petal, or I don't know, star piece, and then sewing down through the middle again each time. And the next one, so this is number 3, so pressing it in at the base, folding it, smushing it flat, and then lifting it back up on itself, and then finger pressing it down. Okay, working my way around. Remember, the button's gonna hopefully cover anything major. Again, pressing it in at the base, flattening it. Pulling it out. Oops. Ah, looks like I caught it there at the end. So I've gone through 2 layers instead of 1. Just refold that. Oops. Straight. Okay, where should we get to? There we go. Straight through. Back up. Creasing the bottom. Catching out just that top bit. Not going through both layers, just one. trying to get it to sit straight. There we go. Okay, I'm on the last one. So the last one, pinch it together at the bottom, fold it flat, turn it back on itself, finger press it in place, go into the end, just that very end bit, just want to come, there you go, and then pull it back on itself. Sometimes it's easier to stick a needle in there and then that helps you hold it back. Just remember that one, being all the way around. Okay, there you have it. Okay, so then you'd cut your 3.5 inch background square. So I'm just going to do this roughly. So that's 4, so that's 7.5. Just so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so you would applique these on and then join them to your 9 patches in the layout of the quilt. I would hand applique these on, so I'm just gonna do a little bit of hand applique so you can get some idea. So I'm gonna stitch, I'm just gonna use the same thread, and I'm gonna go right to the outside edge. Now I would use bottom line, I've got some just 50 weight cotton in here at the moment, but I would use bottom line thread or silk thread to do this, or of course you could do it on your sewing machine with a very narrow zigzag, but I'm just going to hand sew. I wouldn't recommend that you sort of press these because you sort of lose the puffiness, if that makes sense. So there's just a few hand applique stitches, so I'm going right into the very edge, the folded edge, and taking just a little stitch into the background, into the fold. And I would work my way around in that fashion. Go around the corner. Okay, so you get the gist of what it's going to look like. Okay, let's just get the quilt back, finish up. So here are your 9 patches, and here are your applique pieces. Set them out in the, as it says in the PDF instructions, and as you can see here, and then finish it off with a black border and some double fold binding, which was in the instructions. I hope that the video really helps you and that you enjoy making the Fruit Pastels quilt. Thank you.